Sactown Sports.
Rolling right along. Thanks to Frankie for joining us. Right now, America's guest, the hardest working man in the entire business, fresh off of his 4-hour show in Houston, the one, the only Sean Salisbury. Sean, I would imagine your holidays were great. Love from everybody here. And I thought about you last night, my friend, because I still maintain that being a head coach in college football, if not beyond, is in your future. If you were walking into that TCU locker room when the clock hit 000 after the fourth quarter, what do you say to that team, my friend?
Two things. At halftime, I would have addressed them after the game was out of hand, and I would have simply said in the speech, at that point in time, yelling and screaming and throwing stuff doesn't do any good. I would have told my team at halftime, not the, hey, hang in there, we're a comeback team. We know all that. I would have simply said, who do you want to be remembered as? Who do you want to be remembered as in 2022 and 2023? And then I'd have walked out and let them discuss among each other, and we'd have gone back in the second half. At the end of the football game, I would have simply said, your self-worth isn't in our success, and your identity is not locked up into one game. We got beat by a good team. We didn't play our best football, but don't let it diminish or shrink how great you were this year. The things you've built and what you've done to put TCU back on the map. And we had career years, and I would tell them how proud I am of them. And I wouldn't make it too long because it stings, and they were curb stomped last night. But it can't diminish the way they played this year and the resilience they've showed. They just ran into, in truth, Dave, and I was pulling for TCU because I know how good Georgia is. That's more heart than head because you know that Georgia's the better team.
Right.
If they played 10 times, Georgia's winning all of them. Just so we know, it's the difference in programs right now. But Sonny Dykes, they got a lot to build on, and they did something pretty special. But they didn't close out. But I would want them to understand their identity wasn't locked up into one 60-minute game.
Sean, on the Georgia side of things, sometimes a champion wins, and the way they won like that, we jump to grand statements, captures, prisoners of the moment. But, are they historically one of the great teams? And maybe a follow-up, is this just the start of a long-term run Georgia's won 2 in a row. Are they going to be threats every year here for the next 5 years or so?
Yes, they are. Their coach is off the charts. You heard him pregame when he simply said, we are going to play with aggression, and we are hunting. And that's all you can tell he doesn't take any crap. He was hunting, and that team hunted. And I can tell you that I said last week on my show that you do not want to be on Kirby Smart's practice field, even after you beat Ohio State, because that's not the way he wanted to win that game. And I can guarantee you they had a miserable, meaning competitive, change their focus and shift their paradigms after last week's Ohio State game, that they came in ready to play, and it was evident from the get-go. Yeah, they're historic, and here's why. First off, they lost eight guys on defense to the first round. They held a team that scores over 40 a game to 7 points, and that happened in the first quarter. They went 55 unanswered, or should I take that back? Yeah, 50. They scored 65. They went 55, counting the field goal. They had 55 unanswered points. So their quarterback is legendary for what he's done in 4 playoff games. He's the MVP in all of them. They retool. Look at the youth on their football team on the offensive line. They dominate you. They are just getting started. I don't know if they'll win 3 in a row. It's tough, but they seem to be focused. And after last week, got back into it. They were college football's best team, and they proved it. So we have to. You start talking about legendary teams that have won back-to-back. It's hard to win back-to-back. And they did it in nasty fashion. So, yeah, well-coached offensive coordinator is as good as there is in college football in Monken. And they've got playmakers all over the field. And here's the biggest key. That they don't just beat you physically. A lot of times we talk about you to death. I mean, they play in space. They're fast. And they sent a loud message that they were going to make sure that you played with your jaw hanging down and your eyes wide open, because they sent fear into TCU last night. Whether people want to admit it or not, that was an overwhelming performance by Georgia on TCU.
Sean Salisbury with us. Sean, looking at the numbers, I think Schefter and a few others put out a tweet about this. Matt Rule and Cliff Kingsbury this year, Urban Meyer the year before. We've seen it. Petrino, Nick Saban, Spurrier, Schiano, Butch Davis. The numbers on college coaches splitting for the NFL are terrible. And you've got, your Jim Harbaugh here and maybe your Pete Carroll, but as was noted, they cut their teeth in the NFL, generally both as players and or coaches. Why is it that in almost all cases, these tremendous college coaches can't cut it in the NFL? And is that an outlier, or do you think there's something there that's a full-blown trend?
Well, I think that the evidence tells you it's a trend, and you're right. Jim Harbaugh was NFL first college. When it talks about where he, I know he coached at either UCSD or USB, but he basically, they went to the Raiders. He was an NFL guy first and a college guy second. I don't know if we could bottle it up and sell it, we'd probably make a lot of money. To me, it comes down to, one is when you get a job, like think about the guys we're talking about too. Some of the programs, Pete Carroll at Southern Cal, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Think about the guys, Nick Saban at Alabama and LSU. They're at places where you get 22 first-round picks a year. You go to the NFL, normally when you get the job, guess what you're going to get? A bad football team that's rebuilding. And sometimes in college, when you have success, you get to be the dad, the general manager, and all these recruits. And now with name, image, and likeness. When you go to the pros, it's grown-ass men. You don't babysit them. They go on there. They may not have the same priority, and some may. But you also have to understand, when you go to the NFL, you're not in charge of the player. The general manager usually is. Wow. So in high school, you go recruit the guy. You're the final say. Guys are doing everything he said. The general manager, you may love a player. Harbaugh may love a player, and the general manager say, no, but I don't. So less control, and sometimes that can be a good thing, but sometimes not. And normally these guys that are all left, Matt Rule had rebuilt Baylor. They're all going from a top 20 team where they have great players they're going to win every year to an NFL team that they normally get the job because that team is putrid. And we have zero patience now. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. And by the time you just start to get your guys in, somebody else comes in and capitalizes on them. It's a tough gig, and that's why. And I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Sean, in our final minute, want to ask you about the Niners. Hot team coming in. They got the 2 seed. They get Seattle, so third look at them. What do you like about their chances of getting out of the NFC?
I like them a lot. And I know you take a look at the quarterbacks in the AFC and the quarterbacks in the NFC. In truth, I'm not talking about the team that they're on, Jalen Hurts in Philly. But if I said, what quarterback in January, February do you trust the most in the NFC? And you know who you're going to say? The dude who's on the team that finished less than 500, Tom Brady. I think they're beating the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
The NFC, while good players, is a little bit simpler. The AFC route's brutal. So I love the 49ers. They are well coached. They are in rhythm. They've got belief that Brock Purdy can make plays that aren't just the basic, well, don't hurt us, but he can help win games. And their defense is suffocating and smothering. I think they can. And with a little help, and I think you're going to see a couple upsets in the first weekend. If Brock Purdy plays aggressive but smart football and this defense does what they've done all year, the 49ers, I think, are as good as anybody in the NFC.
And Sean Salisbury is as good, if not better. He's better than anybody on the radio waves, and we look forward to talking to him throughout the playoffs as well. Great job, my friend, as always. Always appreciate the time. We never take it for granted. You have yourself a wonderful week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care. That is Sean Salisbury. We are late for a break. Halfway point for the Kings at home.